Is Carson Beck a baby rhino? I don't know.
Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I review Georgia's 49-21 win over UAB. We talk about our experiences on Saturday and what stood out to us during the game. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at My God a Podcast. Finally, we'd love for you to check out our presenting sponsor, Oxia Time, at oxiatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. So, JP, you ventured out of town. I ventured to Athens, and the dogs came away.
Opposite directions.
This is true. True. We didn't even.
I waved at you as I passed.
I was gonna say, did we pass like two ships in the night? I'm not.
Possibly. I'm not really sure about the. I was told there would be no geography.
Fair criticism.
You were coming from Charlotte, so I went through Asheville. So I'm guessing that's like, we were glancing blows, so to speak.
Did you go 85-26? Is that what it was?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Wait, and you guys went on Saturday? Did you drive on Saturday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Because as of recording last time, I was talking about. Well, I guess it was after recording because I think I texted you guys, "Hey, bad news. Sounds like we actually have plans." So like last week we talked about like, "Hey, if I could get lodging figured out, right?" Like that was one of the sign-offs, and then your parents, the gracious Panda, ever the host, she offered me to stay there, which was great, and I think some other folks reached out. So thank you if you were responsive to that with Jim and I. But I ended up not being able to go because as we're on family vacation, my wife informed me that we had actually like family plans once we arrived into town. So I couldn't just like skate off and show up on Sunday. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, we ended up going to the Biltmore and had plans with the folks that we're staying at. Shout out to Rich and Rhonda. We went straight to the Biltmore actually on Saturday. So we showed up at the Biltmore like right around probably kickoff for the 3:30 games, and did the whole house tour and all that kind of stuff, and then went to dinner. But yeah, I made it back about 30 minutes before kickoff and had no issues. We actually paused it right around halftime, have dinner, caught up. So if I was texting you, there was a gap there where I was trying to furiously to catch up.
That's funny.
But yeah, so we I didn't get a chance to tailgate, but I was probably popping a top right around the time you guys were on your probably 5th or 13th beer.
So we'll get to that. Definitely not that many, but I'll explain.
Oh, right. Well, I was, I was trying to be there in spirit. Take the boy out of the tailgate, but you can't take the tailgate out of the boy, kind of thing. My wife gave me hell, like, "Oh, you're bringing a beer to the Biltmore." I was like, "What?" I mean, I drank it while I walked down the hill from the Biltmore to the house, did the tour, and everything's fine.
Perfect.
But yeah, that was my Saturday. So I sent everybody pictures, sent the tailgate group pictures of me and the family walking down the hill, having a beer in my Onward Reserve koozie that you were so kind enough to bring. But yeah, it was a great Saturday.
That's awesome. I went with the same koozie for my lineup on Saturday, by the way.
Were you hopeful that it was going to be a blackout?
I knew, I guess, I was prepared and like sat out all my blackout attire. Even had a conversation with Lily because Lily came with me about like, hey, everyone's talking like I want to wear black, and I have a homemade "Them Dogs As Hell" sweatshirt that's black. It's like it's not the one that Stetson had, but it's black with red lettering, and she had it on in the morning, but then she changed, and which made Kim happy. because Kim was like, she changed into a sweatshirt with no swearing on it. So that made mom happy.
Yes.
She went with like,
You need to get her you need to get her a family approved version.
I know I should, I'll do that. Yeah, it was mine. She borrowed my black sweatshirt. So she went with just like a red sweatshirt,
Nice.
that she got from her grandparents. Um, but yeah, so no, yeah, I mean, I wore black. I know actually, I posted my like pack up gear on Twitter like I usually do, and I know someone responded and asked commented, "There's a whole lot of black you got laid out there. Do you know something?" And I was like, "No, I know they're not going to wear black." It was discussed
hashtag inside sources.
right, yeah, exactly. And then it was discussed at the tailgate. I think Bobby Wilson was given some grief by some folks. I know like Adam was giving Bobby some grief. Like, you told me it was going to be a blackout. It was pretty funny.
It would have been a good one.
It would have been. It would have been. But yeah, so Lily and I, we probably didn't pass you because we left pretty late. I let Lily sleep in. I was like, you know what? It's a night game. Let's just sleep in. We'll just go when she gets up. So that's what we did. So we got there a little later. Didn't like my dad had just had surgery, so didn't want to bother too much. So we stopped in with them, had a visit, sat and watched the end of the 3:30 or the end of the Florida State Clemson game. We watched the ending of that, went into campus, and then just kind of meandered around. Did lunch at Little Italy. Was a major win. It was awesome. So that was Lily's. Lily had never had Little Italy, so I introduced her to Little Italy.
Bro, like Carter had Little Italy when he was like 3 years old.
Yeah, she had never.
There's a picture of Carter walking around North Campus with a box of Little Italy.
Oh man, dude!
He's got He's got his little frat shoes on. He's got his hat on. He's got like mullet going on. He's like 3 years old walking around North Campus with a box of Little Italy.
She loved it. Shocking.
Shocking.
So
really.
Did that. We tried to go meet up with some old friends on North Campus. I didn't want to show up empty handed. So I stopped at the miniature Target that's like on Broad Street underneath that apartment complex. It's basically where Munchies was when we were in college. Although Munchies may have been something else by the time you got there.
I don't remember Munchies.
Yeah, Munchies. I can't remember. It's like around. It's like basically across. If you walk out Lily, take a right, and then go left of the light, just across the street.
Oh yeah, the Target there. Yeah.
So I got some creature comforts from there. And the people I was looking for are usually on North Campus. They weren't there. So, but it was so late, I couldn't make it down to the South Campus. We had talked about trying to meet up with friend of the show, Tim Riley, and Patrick, but they were on South Campus. And so went up and met up with Hug Dog for a little bit before we went into the game. So that's where I saw Bobby and Dwight and Adam. So it was a good time. It was a good time.
Always a good day when you run into Hug Dog.
Yeah, it was good. Good fellowship. Hung out for a few minutes. We got in the stadium really early and got to sit. We watched everything with the band. Watched the whole pregame, everything. It was good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I was driving most of that time. But like I said, I had greener pastures, so to speak, coming to, and so send some pictures to you guys in the DC thread and the Jones thread. But we're up here in Barnardsville, North Carolina, for those that are aware. Give me a shout out if you're in the area, because I'll be here for a couple more days apparently. But yeah, we went up with our hosts. We went to the Biltmore, and then we went to Weaverville to have downtown Weaverville, which is a really nice, super, I was blown away by how great the restaurants were down there. Had some Asian food down in Weaverville yesterday evening. But Saturday, the folks that are hosting us were well aware of what was coming into town, and they had the game queued up and recorded and had dinner ready, and they said, "John, no matter what happens, we've got the game ready to go." Also Georgia fans. Rich is a graduate of the Air Force Academy. So he had already watched the Air Force, which I believe played on Friday, if I remember correctly. But anyway, we had the game queued up at their house, ready to go, and we watched kickoff, did the whole nine.
Nice. I will say something we probably don't really need to talk about because I guess it's kind of over now, at least. But when we were at Little Italy, they had the Dan Lanning beat down of Dion going on, and Lily was just like in awe, like shock and awe of every time they were scoring. Because I think we got there, it was like 21-0, and then they scored what, two more times in the first half. So we got to that's what we had on TV while we were there. So that was pretty fun too.
As we've discussed, I've been waiting for that moment for quite some time. I have a feeling they've got a couple more of those coming their way. Yeah. Let me know if Travis Scott and Lil Wayne and everybody shows up for those games after they have their third loss of the season or whatever. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, too funny. Oh man. So UAB. We is it fair to say we scored we received the opening kickoff and marched down for a touchdown. Is that a fast start, John?
I mean, by definition, that has to be a fast start, right? There were no slow
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that by and large, I feel like that's what, if I'd have told you before the game had started that we would be 6 of 6 on red zone scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
If I told you what the final score was, if I told you that Carson Beck would have thrown for how much did he end up throwing for? Like 300 something yards, almost 400 yards passing, I feel like.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
But I
Yeah.
mean,
338.
yeah,
338.
yeah, 300 plus yards passing. How many touchdowns on those?
Three,
Uh,
three passing touchdowns.
3 passing touchdowns, right? And I think did he have a rushing touchdown too?
Yeah,
Or?
on the QB sneak, which by the way, Bobo loves the QB sneak. I
He
don't.
really does. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of the QB sneak, but particularly with someone like Beck in there. But I mean, guys, I mean, I feel like that we've gotten every time we've tried to sneak it with him, we've gotten it. Which is like, do we have a Tebow on our hands? Like, what's going on here? Is Carson Beck a baby rhino? I don't know. No. So yeah, I mean, he threw for almost over 300 yards passing. We had over 500 something yards of total offense. Like, if you'd have had all that information in the pregame, like, what would you have said that people would have said about this game? They probably would have been. And by the way, Brock Bowers had a pair of touchdowns, had over 100 yards receiving, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you'd have thrown all those facts out to the average Joe Schmo walking along campus tailgating or at Little Italy, not a sponsor yet. If you'd have thrown all those facts out to people, like, what do you think that their general response would have been?
Yeah, I think they would have been well on the offensive side. They would have been like, did Monken come back or something like that?
Right.
Yeah. I think maybe you question the points allowed, but I think this could be easily explained away by a couple of things. It is funny on that note. I know we joked that the expected points or the predicted score by Oddshark, not a sponsor, seemed really high. Like on points scored by them, they had 29.4, which still way too high. But probably got a little closer to that than I would have expected. But offensively, heck yeah, man. I mean, only the guy who sits behind me would disagree with that, John.
Yeah. Was it the same guy that was telling, like, he was yelling at you about and by the way, like, we had how many yards on the ground did we have?
Rush yards in the game, we had, let's see,
I mean, it
100
was
and
over
193, 188 net.
yeah, almost 200 yards rushing. Yeah, like seriously, like throw that on top of the fire, right?
Yeah.
Like if the guy behind you has been screaming about why are we running it up the middle? Why are you running the ball, Bobo? We need to throw it. We need to air it out. Like, bro, like if you're complaining about Bobo after this game, you have Bobo derangement syndrome. Period. End of story. Like, bro, pack it in. You're done. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't even with these people.
Agreed. That was my complaint. I don't want to take too much time on guy who sits behind me, but like
Please,
when
let's
you
there.
when you're scoring that many points, like what do you really have to get upset about?
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, I mean,
yeah,
you had a garbage touchdown. You had another touchdown where we gave him like a short field. Like,
yeah,
like, there's definitely like bones that you could pick on the defense. Like, why
yes,
are we, why are we giving up that kind of, why are we playing so soft? But at the same time, like, I don't know what I expect them to do when they're missing Bullard, they're missing Michael Williams, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. I wish he was sick. So
w- quote unquote sick, which
yeah, I don't know
I
what's
think if
going
you
on there.
follow Dog Central if you want the real story.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we're still missing our number one receiver, which Jim, we keep winning these games without these receivers. I keep hearing over and over again that if you don't have your receivers, that you lose these games. So like, we're at some point, like, when
Yeah.
does that get completely vaporized?
Mm. Yeah. I've this just in. I'm being told it's different if he's been out since the beginning. It only counts when you lose him late in the season.
Yeah, and like I saw someone earlier today say like, oh, it's because of your strength of schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever. Um.
Last I checked, we have the only undefeated SEC teams left on our schedule.
Yes. True story. True story. Still true story.
Just
Um.
saying.
Let's see the with the fast start thing. I did like. I mean, we saw something different, right? I mean, we came out throwing. I got super excited just on the first play of the game. First play of the game, we took a shot. What 8 straight passes called by Bobo before we called a run. Um,
Okay, I'll let you finish, but I'll definitely want to circle back on that comment because I definitely have some feelings about some of that. Keep going.
no, that's what I want to talk about was how we started that game, how we came out throwing. What?
Okay, okay. So if you want to pick some bones about Boba, let me put myself in the crazy person behind you
Okay.
situation. So there was a series, and it escapes me when exactly it was, but there was definitely a period of the game where we were definitely cooking. Like Edwards was cooking on the running game, and then all of
Hmm.
a sudden we get to a situation where we start throwing the ball around, and it's like, dude, like if ever there was a time to run the ball, Bobo, it's right now because Edwards and Bell were just like cooking, right?
Okay.
And I kind of got mad that he started throwing the ball around, and I remember I tweeted it out. I was like, just run the dang Edwards or something like that. Um, yeah, there were definitely a couple of points in the game where I wish that he had called some more running plays, and
After running it.
yeah,
Yeah. I think the thing to remember there is the long con theory and
right.
that we're using these games. We're like looking for situational things we want to work on in games like
I agree.
this.
Yeah.
So I think you could see in this game we were really working on stretching the field, getting some of the vertical passing game going. We saw the 2 deep shots that should have been touchdowns, both the one
Oh,
to the overthrow to Meeks and then the maybe overthrow to Arian Smith slightly, but was definitely catchable. So those were frustrating, but
yeah.
again, for the Bobo haters, those guys, he's got receivers, he's calling the plays. He's not throwing the ball or catching the pass. He's got receivers running wide open from the scheme. So there's at least
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Just like we talked about in the first national championship season, which let's take a drink to that. What a time to be alive. The first national championship season. Um,
Yes, yes.
but yeah, the plays were there, right? Like the
Yeah.
plays have been there all season long. Like there's been multiple situations where we've had the coaches have had the players in the right positions. And it's just on the players to execute, whether it's a whiffed block by Bowers, an overthrow by Beck, someone's not running the right route, someone's not putting hands on a receiver to or a cornerback to block.
Yeah.
There's little things all over the place that have happened, but the plays have definitely been there, particularly for Mr. Beck if he wanted them.
Agreed. And then we really saw Brock Bowers do his thing, which I know you've been waiting for. You've been waiting for him to do that for his, award potential. And I mean, and he did everything in this game.
The
man moves, the cuts,
his flowers. Yeah,
he does the cuts. The stiff arms. I saw some of the most impressive stiff arms. I mean, he was just throwing would-be tacklers off of him, and then leaving them in the dirt with his cuts. Is amazing. I mean, the one touchdown on I think it was one of the wheel route where he basically just like stopped and those two guys fell over and then he ran to the end zone.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little anecdote from here in Barnardsville, North Carolina. Shout out to Rhonda. Rhonda is our host, family friend of my wife. Wonderful woman. She's a huge Braves fan. Watches all the Braves games. But she actually during the game was sitting there watching. They're Georgia fans by default, right? Mm-hmm. But she actually asked a question. She said, "Who's that boy, number 19?" She actually said he doesn't look like he's that big, but he's throwing these boys like they're ragdolls.
Amazing.
I was like, let me tell you about a guy named Brock Allen Bowers.
Oh man, yeah, it was fun to watch, man. It was fun to watch in the stadium. I don't know. I think there was at least twice where he just threw guys to the ground. So
yeah,
and I know one of the things that Graham Coffey pointed out in this 12 takeaways was just like how many of his receiving yards were yards after the catch. He wasn't running super deep routes other than the wheel route on the touchdown. Everything else was pretty short, and it was just Brock, doing Brock things. So it was impressive.
I'm going to tell you, I've mentioned it on the past review games. I believe that we are in for a Bowers deep pass. Like I feel like that there's going to be a way that because if you look at the way that these guys have been running the routes, like over the middle has been open so many times over the last several games. Like you saw Arian Smith get overthrown. Who was the other guy that got overthrown?
It was Jackson Meeks.
Jackson Meeks. Yeah. Okay. So, and those were both like over the middle plays, right?
Yeah.
So I mentioned it on one of our previous episodes. I can't remember which game it was, but it was a South Carolina game. There was definitely a formation where like Bowers was swung out wide. I want to say it was an empty set, but like there are different looks that I feel like that Bobo is getting that I feel like that at some point he's going to hit Bowers and on a seam route or a drag route. I don't know, whatever, however you want to call these plays, but like at some point Bowers is going to be going deep over the middle, one-on-one with either a safety or a linebacker, and he's going to get behind someone, and it's going to be for a big gain because I feel like that had he been in those situations for like, was it the Arian Smith one that he kind of dropped? Like, or I mean, you say he dropped, like he definitely got his hands on it, right?
Right. Yes.
In my opinion, Bowers catches that ball.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know if Beck got enough air under it. He definitely didn't get enough air under the one to Meeks. That was the problem there. But then he put air under to Arian. I think it kind of floated to the middle a bit. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I mean, Smith got to it. He touched it. But both of those were coming right at where we were sitting. So, and both of them, there was a big from the crowd, because like you're just ready to jump up and explode on both of them. So,
I mean, it's been there all season long. Like we've seen it a couple of times where it's like, oh wow, you got these guys running by themselves. If you throw it to them, it's a walk-in touchdown.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that. I love the fact that they're trying. And to your point, like I feel like that you were correct because it felt that way to me. I'm like, dang, we're really letting it loose, aren't we?
Yeah.
And here's a couple of things that I'll say about that. So with the deep passes. So I've been calling for it all season. We've talked about it on the podcast. Like, why aren't we taking shots? Why aren't we doing these things? And I
Yeah.
feel like that they're easing into what this offense is eventually going to morph into, because by and large, the last 4 weeks have been, practice, for the most part, working in people that have either been hurt, working in a quarterback that is new, working in offensive linemen that are filling in for people that are hurt. We're rotating guys around, all these different things. Running back's been hurt, wide receiver's been hurt, everybody's been hurt. Corson mentioned to Kirby in the pregame that, like, this is the most injured that our team has been since Kirby has been at Georgia as a head coach at Georgia. And I would actually say that this is probably as hurt as Georgia has been in, I would say, probably 10 years.
I mean, yeah, it's unbelievable.
I mean, if you go down the roster and look at who's hurt, and you were to translate that to the 2000s when Rich was here, if I was reading this injury report, I would sit here and be like, oh man, we're going to lose every game. Like, what the heck? Like,
Right.
But that just speaks to the depth that we have under Kirby. And it speaks to the recruits out there. Like, good Lord, if you're a recruit listening to this, like, please, like, just recognize, like, there's going to be opportunities for you. And if you're a dog, you're going to get an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as far as like the deep shots though, like, I mean, they're there. Like, he's trying. What I'll say about the deep shots in and of themselves is that Beck, there were several points during the game where it was very clear we were trying to go deep. Like, he wanted to take shots, but Beck was holding on to the ball for an incredibly long amount of time. And that's a long, like, I've joked about this on the podcast. Like, I would love for someone that's much smarter than me, that has much higher means than I do, to figure this out. But, like, I don't know. I feel like that his release, like the time that he takes the ball to the time that he throws the ball, that if you were to take a stopwatch and clock it, like, just look on average, like, how long does it take Beck to get the ball out of his hands? I feel like it's an absurdly long amount of time.
I need to look it up because you've said this, John, and someone commented on it somewhere, and I'm totally blanking. I'll look for it and I'll send it to you. And then maybe I'll tweet it whenever I find it. But someone did either talk about that on another podcast we listened to, or I read it somewhere. And he was getting rid of the ball faster than you would think. I'll say it that way. I don't know that it was like as fast as Stetson, for example, but it wasn't like super long. I'll see if I can find that though.
So that's the comparison though, right? Like,
right.
So a couple of points, like, there was a situation where, like, he took a sack. And it's not the first time it's happened this season, but, like, on the replay, I was like, guys, look, this is what I'm talking about. Like, he's taken 1, 2, 3 steps, and then it's like 5, 6, 7. Like throw the ball away. Like, you got to get rid of the ball. Like, make a decision whether or not it's and then like, he eventually, like, he tucked it and tried to run, but by that point, like, there was nowhere for him to go, and he ended up taking a sack.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to have this internal clock that's like, okay, if I take a 3-second drop, and if I'm on 5, 6, like, my ball's either out or I'm taking off. You know what I mean? You gotta run through your progressions. Maybe I'm being too critical, but that's just how it feels. Like, if you're, like, really being critical of the quarterback play and Bobo and blah 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 blah, like, at some point it comes down to, like, hey, we wrote these plays up. Like, I can't imagine that Bobo's telling him to sit in the pocket for 5, 6 seconds.
Yeah, it's not that long. I promise you that. But
right, whatever the case is.
No, but that's what I know what you're saying though, because sometimes it's like you're like, I feel this way, but you want to see the data to, like, confirm or disprove, and it'll make you feel. I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna make you feel better. I'm sure
that it'll make me feel a little bit better, but I want to see some comparisons.
Okay, yeah, him versus others.
Tell me, like, oh yeah, Carson, he's got, like, it takes him 3 seconds to throw the ball. Okay, great. That sounds pretty good, but, like, what is it compared to, like, a quote unquote elite quarterback?
Right.
Like, what are the release times for Stetson in his 2022 championship run? And what was Stetson in 2021? Like, what was Jake Fromm in 2019? You know, those kinds of things. So, like,
yeah, I'll find it. I know I saw it and I forgot to send it to you, and I'm kicking myself. So I'll find it again. I'll send it to you.
Right.
So,
Dog stats. Get on
Yeah,
it.
maybe it was Josh. For all I know, it was Josh. That's why I'm trying to. That's why
Or Dog Quant.
I'm like, why can't I remember this? All right, why don't we take a quick moment to remind everyone that season 4 of My God, a Podcast is presented by Oxia Time. So Oxia Time is a custom watch company. They make Swiss timepieces. You've got to check out their 2021 and 2022 Georgia National Championship collection. They've got multiple designs for each championship team with multiple color schemes, designs, watch bands, etc. So be sure to go check it out at oxiatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. And you can use the code MyGottaPodcast to get a presentation box to go along with that watch as well. All right. So we said if there were things to nitpick in this game, it was maybe some things in the defense. I'll say like two things. One, we need Javon Bullard back. He makes such a big difference. And we definitely were missing Michael Williams. So there's that. The short touchdown drive, like I'd rather keep him out of the end zone, but that was a short field given up by special teams, which we can get to that in a minute. But really, I think the only like concerning thing, and I don't know how much of a concern it was, but to nitpick with the defense was the 2-minute drill. So that 2-minute drive, which really was kind of jump started by Kirby taking a timeout, trying to get more points before the half ended, trying to get the ball back. And it seemed like, again, with like feelings, John, it felt like Trent Dilfer and company were probably content to run out the clock. And then we called timeout and that kind of like ignited them. And then they went down and scored.
Yeah.
So
that definitely is the case in my opinion. So
yeah. So I know Kirby has basically said like, hindsight, maybe shouldn't have taken the timeout, or he said something to that effect in his press conference. I would agree. Seems like maybe he was mad about the whole flopping injury thing, which we didn't talk about that. I don't know if you even saw that. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and no, the replay was even worse. Yeah, they talked about that on the interwebs.
And that was when that happened. That was what led to the Kirby gif when he was like signaling for the ref to come over to him and yelling stop it or something. I know you made that gif during the game.
I did make the GIF, but I thought he was saying something else.
No. Oh, yeah. I don't know what he's
something more sorry Carter-ish.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I don't know what he was saying. I need to look at it again. But yeah, but that was from that play or from the flop. But at any rate, but that drive was frustrating. We did let him convert on a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. That was kind of frustrating. It did that conversion did not lead to points. They ended up punting on that drive. But so those are the things. If I want to nitpick on things, but otherwise,
we let them get back into the game in the second quarter.
We did
at the end of the second quarter.
At the end of the second quarter,
times, yeah.
And then really, like throw gasoline on the fire. We fumbled again on special teams. So 2 special teams fumbles in the first half. 1 on punt return, which led to the short field for their first touchdown. Then, we had the timeout. They get the 2-minute drill. They score the touchdown. And then we fumbled the kickoff. I mean, it was a comedy of errors right there late in the first half. So,
yeah, if I'd have told you we were going to have 3 turnovers on that game and give them short field on multiple situations, and we won 49-21, like,
yeah, agreed.
If you wipe away a couple of those turnovers and the game is a much more significant blowout.
Oh,
if not worse.
Yeah. I mean, the first one got them into the game. There, the first turnover. It was
right before half, because I remember saying, like, when they got that short field, I was like, well, so we intercepted them, right, and then went down and scored, right?
Yes, and then we tried yeah.
So we turned the ball over, and I remember telling our host Rich, I was like, there it is. So they get the ball back, and I was like, well, we just punched one in right before halftime, so that's good. And then all of a sudden, like, they came down and scored, and then kicked the field goal or kicked off, and then all of a sudden they turned it over, and I was like, well, shoot.
Yeah. Thankfully, we kept him out of the end. That ended like in the weirdest. Like, everyone was calling timeout, and then they just threw an incomplete pass, and then the half was over. That was kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, the can't turn the ball over on special teams like that. That was frustrating.
We need to work on that, Mr. Muse.
Yeah. Agreed. I guess
I think that to that point, like I would say that like I feel like I've seen that turnover earlier in the season. Does that make sense? So this is what he does. Like he goes into these situations and he's like Mighty Mouse and he's super shifty and he's trying to do these things. And what happens is that he's twisting and he's turning and he's trying to move around and get out of these tackles. But what happens is like you're supposed to tuck the ball, right? As soon as you get hit, as soon as the contact happens, that ball's got to be secured, right? But when he's twisting and turning and trying to get out of these things, that ball came up and it got knocked out. Like that can't happen.
Yeah, agreed. I'm sure he's getting that drilled into him this week. Agreed. Like at some point, it's not worth the risk of fighting for those yards, right?
The 2 yards, down. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think the same thing basically happened with Bell. Although I mean, Bell got hit. It was a weird kind of squibby kickoff. Bell's not really expecting to return the kickoff there, but similar thing, fighting for yards, and he got rocked pretty hard to cough that up. So, but yeah, I don't know. And actually, I guess really the big thing though from this game was the graphic they got flashed up late in the game on the best head coaching record through 100 games at an SEC school. So Kirby, 85-15 in his first 100 games, better than the likes of Bear Bryant, Nick Saban, Vince Dooley, anyone. So I did figure something out. I was really confused because they kept saying that it was had passed Bear Bryant's winning percentage and then Nick Saban's record for on-field wins. And I was like, why do they keep saying on-field wins? Like, what are they talking about? And I think it had to do with, I think technically Bear Bryant had the best winning percentage because he had a bunch of ties. But Saban had the record for most wins in the first 100 games, and Kirby bested both of those. So,
yes, he did.
So that was pretty sweet.
Yep, it's gonna leave a crater in the hearts of the Alabamians out there.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. Let's see. You want to check in on coaches over unders?
We don't need to do that.
Hey, I'm only ahead by one. So I went 6-2.
I've got a slow start.
I went 6-2. You went 5-3 in the game. So I am now 20-12 on the season, and you are 19-13 on the season. So Coach Trill, thanks again for checking those, providing them to us and checking them for us. Appreciate it. And then bonus, Coach Trill supplied me with my question that I submitted to the Bulldog Brunch on Sunday morning as well. So shout out to Coach Trill for that.
Ooh,
shout out.
Let's talk about Bulldog Brunch.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Well, so again, shout out to the
bacon wrap shrimp.
So shout out to the Hug Dog. Jason, thank you again for getting us set up with that. So yeah, so Lily and I Sunday morning ventured to the Hilltop Grill, which opened the night David Green. No, I was kidding. We've all heard the ads. We went there. We actually got set up in like a 2-top table, like literally right next to where JD and Kevin Butler are recording and doing the Bulldog Brunch. It's pretty epic. They had some technical difficulties. So for those who listened to the Bulldog Brunch, they couldn't take calls. So every week, Killer, who is a lovely lady from Kennesaw, is always the first to call. And she was like, hey Kevin and Jeff, and started kind of in her usual thing, but then she's like, I can't hear you. And then like they talked to her, and then she said, hey Kevin and Jeff again. And JD was like, are we stuck in the loop? Like, what just happened? And so anyways, they couldn't take calls. So what they ended up doing was they asked folks in the audience if anyone wanted to ask a question. So I had like brain freeze and texted you and Coach Trill and outsourced. Did you guys have any questions to ask and Coach gave me one, so I asked that, which they said was a great question, and they really liked. It was actually something we talked about earlier. The fact that we had started off with 8 passes, and that Bobo would seem to run to set up the pass under Richt, but in this game maybe we passed to set up the run, and what did they think about that? And Butler actually said that he felt like Kirby had challenged Bobo to attack the defense early and to attack vertically. So I thought that was an interesting answer. But aside from that, you want to hear about the food, John. So we did start off with the bacon wrapped shrimp. It was excellent. Lily got a steak sandwich with fries. It looked amazing.
That's a big, bold strategy, Cotton.
It was both her brunch and like actual lunch. She took the rest of it to go and ate it in the car on the way home.
Nice.
And then I got steak and eggs. So I had steak with eggs over medium and the red mule grits on the side, obviously.
Did you get the bacon wrapped shrimp?
Yeah, that was the appetizer. That was the appetizer. Okay. Yeah. And they were excellent. And I can confirm that when they talk about eating the bacon wrapped shrimp, they actually do eat them during the show, in case you're wondering. During commercials, obviously, because they're professionals. But
I mean, what better way to kick off a Sunday morning than eating some bacon wrapped shrimp?
It was pretty cool. I actually met a listener. I met Scott Green. Scott had gone to his first ever Bulldog brunch and spotted my hat. And we struck up a conversation off that. I was wearing what you're wearing right now, John.
I love it. Yes.
The white I got a podcast hat. I was actually wearing that shirt too. You're actually wearing what I wore to the Bulldog brunch.
Yeah, I'm wearing your attire. This is what I brought. Yeah, I brought the light up Sanford.
Too funny. So shout out.
What are you wearing?
yeah. So shout out to Scott. It's great to meet you. But hey, if you want to get a My God a Podcast hat, you can head over to mygodapodcast.com/store. Check out our new site. There was powered by Working Web Media. They set that up for us. So if you got a small business and need any web design help or just any help with your online presence, be sure to check them out at workingwebmedia.com/dogs. So
get you a hat.
That's right. Both hats we're both wearing. Either of these, they're both available on the site.
You've got the Better Never Rest hat.
I do. Sorry. I'm now forgetting that we're primarily an audio medium.
We've branched into the YouTubes.
Yes.
So if you want to watch us on YouTube, you can get our beautiful backgrounds and all of the audio visual that you need.
And I'm not sure with our frame if it makes it in or not, but I've got my hover helmet in the back, which I actually got that from Kevin Butler, and we discussed that on Sunday. So good times are ahead.
I really like the hover helmet. It's a solid helmet.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So we did that, and then we headed back and spent a little bit more time with my parents, and then drove home and wrapped up the weekend by replacing tires on Ella's car, because in the middle of the game I was getting texts from Kim, our oldest daughter, had got a flat tire during the game, actually Saturday night. I don't even know if I told you that.
No, yeah, I didn't hear the story.
Yeah, Kim was texting me like during the game. Ella just got a flat tire on the way home, and it was like 9:30 or something. And it got to the point where I was just like, it was in a neighborhood. I was just like, just leave it. Let's deal with it tomorrow. So it has now been. We're good to go now. So
excellent. Well, that stinks. Buying new tires is never a fun endeavor, but
yeah. Hey, at least everyone was safe. That's the most important thing, John.
Right. Well, I don't really know what else to say. The Blazers did not blaze a trail in this game.
Did not.
Contrary to what 45E behind you has to say, or whatever seating zone he's in. But yeah, so onward. Who do we got next? We have the Bizarro Tigers from Alabama.
We had the team the indecisive mascot team.
Which, to be fair, I've done some research on. We'll get to it on the next episode, but they actually are pretty decisive about their mascot, apparently.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Teaser.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, yeah. So I know for us, that's going to be really soon. For those listening, we'll be back in a couple of days to preview the first road game of the season.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
guys, we had a night game, which by the way, it sounds like we got another night game
More
coming
coming,
up
more on the
too.
way. They're making up for the
Um,
lack of them the last 2 years.
seriously, like what? Like, yeah, of all the seasons, for me to miss all the night games, but I'm gonna work. I mean, literally the whole world is coming to town October 7th. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, nope. Beautiful night game was had for at UAB. I'm super jealous. But I'm hoping to let's run it back in October, Jim.
Like it. Perfect.
All right. Well, we got the Tigers up next, and like I said, this is what we expected by
Yeah.
and large. So it'll be
Agreed.
a little tougher test, SEC game on the road, and we'll see how it goes.
Let's do it.
All right, man. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.